Hello everyone, my name is Vendetta. Today, we're gonna play TDX, except I can only use explosives. Now, what does this challenge mean? What does it mean? What am I doing here? Well, very simply, I'm going to play endless, but I'm only going to use towers that use explosive ammunition type. The rules for this challenge: I cannot do any other kind of damage, like bullet, laser, golden, ice, fire. Can't do any of that. It has to be explosive only. The next rule for this challenge: if there is a tower, which we'll jump into in a second here, that starts off with a different kind of damage type, but later changes into explosive, we can use that tower simply as long as we upgrade it to the level of explosive before we use it. Now, we have to choose our loadout, the people we're gonna bring, the towers we're gonna use. What do we do? Well, let's start off with something simple. Our boy, the early game king for this challenge, the Grenadier. The Grenadier is going to be our early game champion. He's going to carry us throughout the game, and even throughout the later waves with his stun. Next up is the Helicopter. The Helicopter doesn't start off with explosive bullets, however at level 4 and 5 on the top path, it starts using explosive bullets. So as long as we don't use it before then, we should be good. Helicopter is going to be good for that additional DPS and carrying throughout the mid to late waves. We've got Golden Mine Layer. Golden Mine Layer is going to carry us because, when does he not? We've got Artillery next. Artillery is going to be our support. It's going to help early game and honestly give us something to spam late game. We've got the XWM turret, similar to Helicopter, doesn't get explosive bullets until later upgraded. However, it is very, very powerful on the bottom path with its explosive rounds, so we will be bringing XWM turret for this challenge. And lastly, of course, how could I forget, the Warship. Explosive king and our main source of DPS in this challenge. Before we start, if you enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like. It really helps and I appreciate your support. Also, make sure to drop a comment letting me know what you think about this kind of video, if you want to see more challenges like this, or if you have another idea for me. Also consider subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching. Let's jump right into it. I started the game, of course, with Grenadier. This guy is my king. He is going to carry us through the early game for this challenge. I placed him in this corner, and I gave him a few upgrades to make sure that he could take out enemies easily, and then I focused on trying to get him to level 3 on the top path so that he could have stealth detection for the upcoming stealth. The Grenadier was doing well on his own, but soon he would not be enough. He would need support, he would need help, so I decided to place an artillery. I placed the artillery up on that shelf, and using my immense artillery skills, I sniped these heavy contains, and the rest of them alike, just because I'm that good at artillery. They looked like they were going to get away, but again, using my immense skills, I was able to clean them up pretty easily. Lots of the early game in this challenge involved using the artillery, but I'm not complaining. I honestly like artillery, it's very fun to use, and it feels actually impactful. Not to mention, artillery is definitely one of my favorite underrated towers. I took out this mutant scientist with the artillery, and then the rest of these contains. Honestly, the artillery was completely destroying everything in its path for me. It was doing so well, even against multiple mutant scientists. Artillery just has that benefit of unlimited splash. Things started to get bad when the dispose lists were spawning a lot of enemies. However, it was no issue for me and my immense artillery skills. You already know, I took them all out. Except for a handful here and there. They got away, but you know what? They don't matter. I have enough health to tank all of it, so I decided to roll with it, not worry about them. Instead, I'm going to worry about these ghost guys over here instead. I continued upgrading my artillery, got it to level 3 on the bottom path, and now it was proper destroying everything in its path. With 275 damage and a splash radius of 10, artillery is wild. It is very, very powerful, even against enemies like these scientists that have some explosive resistance. I was still able to knock them out pretty easily using this artillery. Now that my artillery and Grenadier were sufficiently upgraded, I needed to get a warship. So that's what I did. Got myself a warship, set it to strongest, and now we were proper in business. Things got a lot easier with the warship, especially since it had that high damage. It was just like having a second artillery that aimed for me. It was very useful, and again, keeping up my pro skills with the artillery, I was able to knock out everything here. This big green dude came along, but honestly, he wasn't much of a worry. The warship totally sniped him, so at the time, I was preparing myself to fight our biggest threat yet, the Plague Doctor. This guy was going to be a test to see if we had enough firepower to get through his health bar. The Plague Doctor can heal, and he's got a lot of friends on his side in that wave, so I would need to be careful, especially considering some of the friends he's got on that wave have explosive resistance. Honestly, having a powerful artillery is really handy, considering it does 535 damage. It was really handy to have. I also upgraded my warship to level 3 so that I could see stealth. I needed that warship upgraded so that would actually help me with the stealth enemies. Things were going well, and we were on wave 20. We were melting through the enemies, despite some of them having high resistances or being quite fast. I decided now I would try and get myself a helicopter. As I mentioned before, we can't use helicopter until it uses explosive rounds, so I had to hold off until I got enough money for an explosive helicopter. Things started looking a bit rough when these mutant zombies came in, and I wasn't so sure I was going to survive, but again, I have incredibly cracked skills with the artillery, so it wasn't an issue with me. That was until they kept sending a lot of them. There was about 7 or 8 on this wave, and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to handle it. That's when I realized I have to get the helicopter. I upgraded the helicopter just in time, got it coming over, and we just barely, narrowly avoided death on 224 HP. Now though, my helicopter was helping, and the helicopter, warship, and artillery were working together to take out all of my enemies. The helicopter is extremely overpowered. At level 4, it does over 400 DPS, and that's not even level 5. The Plague Doctor had come, and all of his friends were here with him. However, my artillery being at max level now, and my newly added helicopter, made this light work. If you don't know, the artillery got a buff a few months ago that makes it do more damage, have more splash radius, and ignore explosive resistance. So this was a must for the artillery. I decided now it was time to get an XWM turret. I placed it on top of these crates here, and made sure to upgrade it as much as I could. The XWM turret was very powerful. It did over 300 DPS just at level 4, and I set it to random to make sure that it would get all that splash. Although I wasn't sure with the XWM placement here, I was going to keep it because I wanted to place 2 up there, and I wanted to just get the turret down as quickly as I could. At this point, some of the enemies I struggled with earlier became a complete joke. My artillery was able to knock out lots of the enemies at once with its massive splash radius, and the warship and helicopter made light work of everything else. The revived Plague Doctor was here now, and honestly, I wasn't even worried. There's not a whole lot to this guy, except he killed my Grenadier, so I decided to get an entire village of Grenadiers, though he killed all of them too. So I repopulated the village. That repopulation wave of Grenadiers seemed to put him to sleep. I got myself another helicopter, and things were again looking very good. 2 max helicopters, a warship, a max artillery, and an XWM turret, and of course, my village of Grenadiers. I was going to need to prepare now for wave 35 and 40, where wave 35 had an Eradicator and 3 Predators, while wave 40 had Eradicator and Eradicator Mark II, along with a bunch of avatars in both waves. I swept my way right into wave 35, and honestly, it wasn't too big of a challenge. I used my artillery to chip at their shield, while my helicopters and warship were busy taking out the avatars in the back. The Predators and Eradicators seemed to dislike my village of Grenadiers, so they quickly wiped out the population. However, I had to keep repopulating the village as much as I could in order to distract them from attacking the rest of my towers. I placed a 3rd helicopter in order to get that DPS up, and placed a side village over here just as a backup to stop Eradicator a little bit longer. With that, wave 35 was complete, and now I was going to sweep my way into wave 40. Speaking of wave 40, it arrived very shortly, and I was ready. The avatars landed, and my helicopters quickly made short work of them. Everything else was no big issue. However, my village of Grenadiers had completely died out, so I had to repopulate them as quickly as I could. I continued placing more helicopters as backup DPS, knowing Eradicator Mark II wouldn't get rid of them. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, my artillery was unfortunately going to die, so I had to sell it in order to save it. Rest in peace, 1st Artillery. You will be remembered. After getting a couple more helicopters, Eradicator Mark II went down pretty easily. With all my helicopters, a warship, and a now max XWM turret that had unfortunately lost one of its lives, we were looking great. We had almost all our helicopters placed, and things were looking up. We had lots of DPS, and the helicopter does ignore explosive resistance, so even if enemies like that come along, we were okay. My next plan was to get as many XWM turrets and warships as I could without losing much money. Oh yeah, the Grumbles arrived, but they were no big deal. No match for my explosives. I decided to get a Grenadier that was on the bottom path to help stun the enemies. I continued placing bottom path XWM turrets, and honestly, I was really happy to see that they do 710 DPS. Though I had to be careful because the XWM turret did recently get a nerf where the more you have maxed out, the more expensive they get. Eradicator Mark IV was here. Honestly, wasn't too worried about him, though he did try to sink my warship. I did replace it though, so no biggie. He was going down fast, and though I did miss my warship and unfortunately lose it, I got more XWM turrets to make up for it, and I did end up placing my warship back, so no big deal. Eradicator Mark IV down, and that's one less boss for me. I managed to squeeze in an XWM turret on this crate here with 2 going up there. That rarely happens, and I was really happy to see I could squeeze in the 2 there. Again, I'm pro skills, so you probably saw it coming anyways though. I was now getting an abundance of XWM turrets. They were doing much more damage than I thought they would. XWM turret on the bottom path has been a tower that I underappreciated. I don't show enough appreciation for it. Also, look at that umbrella of missiles. Isn't that funny? I love XWM turret on the bottom path, man. It's so funny. All of my attempts without the XWM turret in this challenge didn't go as far as it did on this one. Not nearly as far. So it's safe to say the XWM turret is definitely one of the best towers you can take for this challenge. This advisor guy told me Eradicator Mark 1 combat was coming, but again, I'm too pro skills. I was not worried at all, not even in the slightest. I again repopulated my Grenadier village, but I guess Mr. Combat Man didn't like that very much, so he quickly sweeped them out. I placed lots of warships to try and bait his attacks a bit more. Combat went down pretty easily, except for the part where he didn't. Again, he didn't seem to like the grenade population, so he kept sweeping them out. I don't know what's with these Eradicators and not liking my Grenadiers. I really don't know what they did wrong. Anyways, I kicked him out of here and continued on my conquest. I placed plenty of bottom path warships in preparation for the next boss that I knew would take out lots of my towers, and I would have to kill as fast as I could. I was placing more XWM turrets by the second, trying to fit as many as I could onto the arena as possible. I needed that DPS, I knew I would, especially considering the next boss was Apex Predator himself. They dropped a bunch of avatars in, but honestly, it was kind of funny just watching them get destroyed by all my warships and helicopters. Don't forget the XWM turrets. I mean, look at those missiles flying in. I decided it would be funny to place a few artilleries on the bottom path and just have them set somewhere where I wouldn't move them, just have them set there and not touch them. I almost forgot, but now it was Apex Predator time, where he was going to obliterate everything I had, including my Grenadier village. Once again, don't know what these guys have against some simple Grenadiers, but yep, they all died pretty quickly. He also didn't seem to like my warship fleet. He took out a lot of those. I took down Apex Predator pretty easily. I wasn't too concerned about the hunters, but little did I realize they were going to be much more of a pain than I thought they would. I knew I had to prepare now. Although I had all my bottom path XWM turrets, I had to prepare for Calamity. Calamity spawns a lot of enemies on the field, and although we have lots of explosive to deal with that, I still wanted warships to help out. Also, I love showing this off. Check out my favorite XWM spot in the whole game. You can place towers in this little oil rig tower in the middle of the map. If you place them just right, you look for the right spot just long enough, you can find just the right spot to place them. By now, I had around 20 XWM turrets or so, and the number was climbing by the second. I showed no sign of stopping the XWM turret building, as I needed as many of them as I could get my hands on. Managed to fit quite a few on this ledge, but overall I pretty much ran out of money, and that dynamic price scaling feature on the turret was now getting to me. To max out a turret, it was 300k, but that was honestly the least of my worries right now, considering Satan himself decided to show up. I decided to spam artillery for whatever reason. I don't really know why I did that. I had greater worries at this time, but you know what? Past me is a different kind of guy. That's what I noticed. I was kind of dying at the back here, but then my helicopters clutched up and saved it. I had to replace quite a few of my helicopters, but that was okay. Calamity's entire army went down pretty easily, and then it just came down to him, which everything else I had already been blasting him. Calamity got really mad and he killed a bunch of my things, so I just had to replace a few of them, but honestly, it was fine because shortly after he died. And now it was pretty much smooth sailing from here. My goal for this challenge was to see if I could make it to wave 130. 130, if you don't know, has an Apex Predator and 2 Eradicator Mark IVs. This means my warship population would greatly decease. This was not going to be good news, but I had to see if I could at least get there and maybe even beat the wave. I decided to spam bottom path grenadiers here so that I could slow down my enemies and possibly group them up to make more advantage of my splash. Then I decided it was time for more artillery. Artillery was, well, not really that useful, but you know what? It gave me something cheap to spam. A bunch of these dudes showed up. I don't really know what their problem was, but just like the other guys, they hated the Grenadier village, so had to keep repopulating it to show dominance. The Grenadiers were dying, and this errata dog almost actually made it, but my bottom path Grenadiers did stun him long enough to survive. That's when I realized I needed more support in the front. I continued attacking with more helicopters and XWM turrets. A lot of the bosses were going down now. This guy ran really fast, but not fast enough, I guess. Then this guy kind of just exploded, and this guy also kind of just exploded. Now I decided it was time to set up golden mine layers. I had lots of money, so I knew it was safe to do this. The golden mine layers would be extremely helpful, especially for the coming waves. I used the G-Mine's throw ability to really stun and damage all of the bosses just hanging around that I completely forgot about. That's when I noticed this revived Plague Doctor making it a lot further than he should have. Honestly, I was a bit worried, but it was no big deal because I kept replacing my warships, and eventually they all went down pretty easily. Lots of the game after this was pretty smooth sailing, and I was getting close to my goal of hitting wave 130. These Goliaths were pretty scary, but again, no match for my pro skills. The Grenadiers were definitely making short work of them, grouping them all up for my explosives and especially my mine layers to take max advantage of their splash. I was pretty proud of my artilleries here. They honestly weren't doing too much, but they looked funny, so I was happy with it. That's when this wave with a bunch of hunters came along. Hunters have 95% explosive resistance, and their health isn't too large, especially on these waves, but 95% explosive resistance means only helicopters and golden mine layer are doing damage. I definitely had to keep an eye out for those guys, as they would definitely be a problem. Eradicator Mark IV didn't get very far. I mean, he kind of just tripped and fell, so one idiot. The rest of the waves building up to wave 130 weren't too notable, except for the fact that my golden mine layers pretty much carried the whole way through. Finally, the wave came, 130. Apex Predator and 2 Eradicator Mark IVs. Don't forget, Apex Predator has an army of Predators, Snow Predators, and Hunters. The Hunters were going to be a huge issue, as they basically distracted my helicopters the whole fight. I decided it was time for the Grenadier village to make a return. However, they honestly didn't last that long. Wasn't too surprised by that, but it's okay. Their sacrifice is noted. My warships were dying quickly, and if I wanted to survive, I had to replace them quicker than they could kill them, which was a hard task. But eventually, everything went down in wave 130. I did it. I reached my goal, and even beaten the wave. I started by replacing a lot of my mine layers, knowing I would need them in a coming wave very, very soon. However, that's when I looked up and realized that's a lot of Goliaths. I was a little bit scared, but honestly, wasn't too big a deal. they died pretty easily, just like everything. Probably due to my pro skills or something, I don't know. Got all my warships back, and eventually we were back in business. There were a few notable experiences with some assailants here, but honestly no big deal. The helicopters and G-mines made quick work, and after I replaced a few of my turrets, this was wave 134, a pretty deadly wave. This wave kills a lot of people even when they're playing the game completely normally, as this wave is honestly super brutal. However, my immense G-mines and, once again, immense pro skills took everything down very easily. Even if it was pretty close and quite the scare, we had everything under control. Just as I do in every endless run, I completely forgot there was Super Revived Toilet John here, and he kinda caught me off guard, but to be honest, he wasn't too big an issue, nor were the Eradicator Mark IVs that came with him. Even if they sank a lot of my warships, I didn't really care. I was more focused on trying to deal all that damage, and of course, the most important task, repopulate Grenadier Village. You're probably sick of hearing me say this, but everything went down pretty easily. Nothing notable here, except for the fact that I lost a lot of my warships. Honestly, I thought I was going to die soon. I didn't think I would make it much further considering I was now running out of money, and I thought the run would end pretty soon. But hey, I got to my goal, didn't I? I got to 130, and I even beat it. So getting further than that is definitely a win. But I'm not really sure what happened here, because Santa came along, which, oddly enough, isn't the part I'm questioning. I guess I didn't notice this until a few waves later, but Santa and Eradicator Mark II on this wave have a lot of health, and that health helps me get money. So when I took these guys down, I wasn't so concerned about money anymore. I mean, I didn't really know that until a few waves later, but, you know. Then this wave came along with these super naughties. This wave I don't ever think too much of, it's not really that notable. However, lots of these guys give money, so when I took a lot of them down, I was rich. I had 1.4 million to work with, and the number was drastically climbing with the anti-golems that came in the following wave. However, I still at the time thought I was kind of poor, so I was like, dang, I'm gonna die soon. And then that's when I noticed my money, and I was like, wow, I'm rich. I'm not gonna die soon. So that's what I did. I died not soon.
What?
These Goliaths were a little bit scary, but I mean, again, pro skills. Even if the XWM turrets were costing me a fortune by this point with that price scaling, I was still gonna replace everything I could. I had to survive as long as I could. Since I already reached my goal, I was genuinely curious to see how far I could go at this point. So after setting up a few more defenses and getting myself prepared for the coming waves, I was ready to fight Golden Eradicator Mark IV. And here he was. Usually when I fight this guy, I try and micro the warship placements, and I try and cycle between two different warships, replacing and selling each of them to hold his attacks in a lock so that I won't lose as much money. But honestly, I just didn't care at this point, so I just let him take whatever he wanted. I was still doing very well in the money department anyways, so it's not like it was an issue if I lost a lot of warships. Still had lots of DPS anyways. He went and died kind of easily, so yeah, what an idiot. Then a bunch of assailants came. This was kind of scary considering assailants have 99% explosive resistance, meaning my warships and XWM turrets do literally nothing. I mean, they were doing like 7 damage, so yeah, that was kind of scary. But my G-mines and helicopters, of course, carrying this whole challenge on their backs, did everything and absolutely destroyed them. I was chilling now. I was honestly super rich. I had lots of my towers placed. No G-mines or turrets or anything were missing, so life was good. Nothing could possibly go wrong, right? Wrong. Because although there were a handful of rough waves to fight, including this one with a bunch of assailants, and then this one with like a bunch of anti-golems, which was honestly really scary, my biggest concern was wave 166, which was this Calamity boss fight. Honestly, I wasn't super worried as I was more prepared than I was for the last one, so I thought I could handle this pretty well. And I did. Of course I did. Did you have any doubts? Probably not. You already know I got it. And it was just a waiting game for the next couple of waves until wave 169. This wave with the assailants was, again, kind of scary. Any experience with assailants is pretty frightening, especially in this challenge, but eventually we got through decently fine. So then wave 169 came along. This guy, the heavy zombie plus with like, I don't know, 10 million plus HP, yeah, he's kind of scary. I don't really know if he's difficult or not, but he's scary, alright. He honestly had me worried, but eventually we took him down. The G-Mine definitely played a huge role in slowing him down and dealing lots of damage to him. But then came my worst nightmare, Golden Eradicator combat. This guy is a killing machine. He is absolutely ruthless. I had no confidence that I was going to beat this guy, especially considering he mows down everything you have, and then he heals. That's right, he heals just like his normal self, so I would have to fight him basically twice. Here I was hoping that I was going to be able to kill him while he was doing his animation, but I didn't get it, and he did end up healing. Very unfortunate for me, but it's okay, because while it did seem like a bad fight, and he did kill a lot of my towers, it ended up being okay because he died pretty easily. I was happy with my victory, but it was short-lived. This wave, honestly, I had no hope to survive. I had no faith in myself, and my fate was coming to an end. I could feel the run dying out as I watched the Grumbles run to my base right at the end, and with that, the game was over. We died on wave 171, which, ironically, is what level I am in TDX. Thank you all so much for watching. If you want to see more challenges like this, where I do something like Bullet, or Laser, or Golden, do let me know. I'll see what I can come up with. But for now, we'll see you all next time. Thank you all for watching. Have a good day, night, or whatever time it is for you. And we'll see you all next time on this channel. Bye-bye!